Curtis, how's it going, man? Nice to see you.
Doing great, Kev. Nice to see you too, my friend.
Yeah, good. So, Curtis, really glad you joined us for our Elevate Speaker Series. You are the current coach of the Vancouver Island Raiders, plus many more roles in the community. But let's talk about that for now. How's it going there?
Despite this pandemic, we've managed to create a really great team. So if we do get the opportunity to hit the field, we should be looking pretty strong. Our current players are working hard in the off season, finding ways to get around, not having a gym necessarily, so they're being creative in their workouts. They're managing to connect through all the social media platforms. So overall, I'm quite happy with what's been going on over here.
I want to delve more into your kind of career in education, but has football kind of been always at the forefront and the kind of the passion within you? And did you always see yourself stepping into a head coach role?
Depends what age you're asking me that. Like when I was younger, I was all about hockey, and then when I started playing football, like it was something very different for me. Then as the years have gone by, you know, football is it pushed its way to the front. It wasn't necessarily what I thought I'd be doing. As far as being a head coach right now, I didn't see that kind of as a thing I'd be doing, but since it has happened, I couldn't be happier to be in that role. Be able to share experiences and kind of share leadership philosophies and ideas to kind of move the sport forward. So was that my forefront? No, but is it definitely on most thoughts on most of the days? Absolutely. There's always a thought about football and how the players are doing, how your coaches are doing. So as far as like the football head coach and stuff, I didn't see this kind of becoming a thing, but I'm happy it has. The other part of the question was, you said with education.
Mm-hmm.
So, with if you're referring to my post-secondary, I definitely did work in coaching, and now that I'm in education, working at John Barsley High School, which is a big football school. Also, that helps a bit more in the football world. But with my master's work I'm doing, so I'm doing my master's at Vancouver Island University. I'm doing in educational leadership, and some pretty cool things happen with that. My supervisor, she is an Olympian downhill bike rider, I understand, and she's all about the sport and competitive nature. When I was looking at working through my master's work, we do coursework on obviously leadership and understanding different kinds and what kind of leader you are. So like my leadership style is a transformational leader, where I believe that everyone can do well and empower them to do more and define more. I do that with my players and with my coaches. But one thing that ended up with this master's program, I went from a big focus on the growth mindset, which I'm instilling in my players, and growth mindset's kind of the idea that anyone can kind of shift their traits to make something work, a lot of feedback and whatnot. Where like a fixed mindset is the opposite, saying that you can only do one thing. Like if you're a soccer player, no, I'm only a striker. I'm not gonna hustle back. That's not my job. Yeah. Where we want the well-rounded people that like I might have done this wrong, but I can fix this. Not saying they're only good at one thing. So I learned about that, but then my supervisor kind of like, well, do you love what you're doing? I said, well, I don't mind it. And then we kind of found ourselves in a bit of a football realm with coaching and leadership, because sport and education do carry a lot of the same values, and being a leader in sport is very similar to education, how things kind of the wheels turn. I mean, obviously there's content to everything you're doing, but as far as school and sport are concerned and teaching, their coaching and teaching are identical. So what I've been doing with my master's, I kind of looked at things from almost what's like a gap in what's going on in the Canadian Junior Football League. One coach and I were kind of got in discussions before was around mental health. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of been a really big one as for any sport and all across the world, especially right now during this pandemic. But so the wheels kind of got turning around ways to how we can get players to say how they feel. With football being the way it is a testosterone driven, heavy male dominated sport. And the concept of showing vulnerability or quote unquote weakness by having something, not feel well with you, we're trying to get past that. Like there's like lots of different, you know, channel, like the Bell's got Bell Kid, Bell Talk, and you know, different ways to get to services to help you. But as a coach, you know, I kind of want to find a way to make this easier for people, because also it'll determine how I would run a practice or how I might interact with different players. So what I've created is, you know, with some help, is an app that it's not quite done yet, but the premise of it is if you're the coach and you own one of the licenses, every one of your athletes has this app, and then you would choose, like, let's say 10 a.m. you send them a push notification, say how you feeling today, and you open it up as an athlete, and you pick from 10 to 1, 10 being amazing, 1, you know, I need to talk to someone immediately. And that's kind of what we've started with. So with information like that, you know, if the team average is around a 5, I need to work on more. I got to find ways to bring people up. You know, if we're all averaging around 7 or 8, you know, we can really get rocking and have a pretty sharp and fun practice. But it's giving opportunity for intervention as far as, you know, our own players being there to support each other. As coaches, we, you know, if we see that a player, but they're out of 4, we can go in and check in on them and see if anyone can help. And, you know, if it's lower than that, we have the resources and people lined up to, like, okay, you know what, take today off, go talk to someone. And I feel, you know, as a leader, that's something that I noticed that we could use, you know, because they're not just a number. As you know, with football, I do carry, you know, from 70 to 80 athletes, but I don't want them just to be a number. You know, I want them to know they're cared for, and we can, you know, find the tools to help them kind of move forward, where they're not just stuck doing one thing, or feel that they say something, oh, I might lose my spot. You know, they might think I'm not mentally sharp, you know, but really they might need a little help. And that's something that everyone can use once in a while. So to provide them with an opportunity to say something, you know, I think it'll help a lot of kids, you know, progress through, especially, you know, even in the amateur realm, like the pressure to perform, like they're one step away from becoming a professional athlete. So there's a lot of pressure, you know, in every play. You know, football as a stop start, it's not a lot of free flowing. So for them to recover, you know, from a blown play, it takes the next play to make it happen. So the mental toughness, you know, we're obviously, as a sporting culture, we're trying to instill as much as possible, but there's a lot more going on, you know, in the brain of an athlete than the next play. We want to be able to support them any way possible. So with this app I've created, you know, once it's fully launched and whatnot, it'll be a trial year in the Canadian Junior Football League. And then I hope to, you know, see if any other leagues would be interested in using it, you know, because it just has information that I feel would be, you know, very useful when looking at practice plans and growth of a team, and how to kind of maneuver through some of these mental health issues.
Wow, I think that's really amazing and intriguing that you're really tapping into that. And when you say about the app and you hit the button of times that you're feeling good, I've seen that done in the English Soccer Premiership with teams, high level teams, but it's all physical based. So how did you feel in training today? Hit the button. You know, how do you feel this morning when you come in? And it's all tailored towards physical performance. But there's nothing there saying, I mean, not that I've seen anywhere, that says, you know, really scratching away at the surface and delving into there, because like you say, they're not just a number. They're not just a body. It's a human being there. So what has made you tap into that? I know it's kind of resonated with you with your studies, but what has made you really delve into this? Is it past experience? Is it just a fascination with that side of the coin? What has really got you into this?
Well, you know, with the time that went by with my master's program, and coaching and reflective work is super important for growth, I kind of thought about my playing days. You know, when I did get to play, I played with some of the best players, you know, in the CJFL history. And like Andrew Harris, he'll probably go down history as one of the best CFL players of all time. So looking at kind of the players I played with, and the personalities and how it all worked. And every team I played for was super strong. You know, at every position we were really talented. But then I kind of started thinking about, you know, what about the guys that didn't play, or the guys that didn't get through? You know, did we miss out on someone being amazing because we didn't have the tools to help them? So working in high school at John Barsby and seeing the football program there, you know, they are tough. and they are cut from a different cloth, and there's, they don't always say how they're feeling, but when we don't have ways to help them with it, they have an outlet for it, we'll never know how they're feeling. And it could be just barely holding on, or it's a kid that, had a bad day and they don't come back to the game. We don't want to lose athletes or any love for sport because we're already struggling to keep, people playing the game or any of the games really.
Right.
So the big thing, the big, part for me when I was thinking about it was kind of the guys that, because I played football, the ones that didn't make it through, the ones that stopped playing because of the mental aspect, because there's a big chunk of them that, getting to practice every day was extremely challenging, or they had things going on at the home that they just really couldn't talk to anyone about. So for me, it came from the guys, that I think we might have missed out on, that didn't get to be part of something more because there's no one, they kind of suffered in silence. And I think if we can, support that little bit, will change a lot of sports, change a lot of how things are done, even how athletes treat each other and treat themselves. That the pressure to perform is hard enough, but to have every other piece of it kind of weighing on your shoulders, we're not going to find, that untapped greatness that might be in the next up and comer.
Okay, so you've mentioned about your app, which I think I'm so looking forward to seeing that. That sounds really exciting. And I'm hoping other sports maybe will get onto that as well. How do you transform that growth mindset, that player environment into your training on a macro and a micro level?
So with the growth mindset piece is I really instill in the coaches. So I was the head coach. I've got 17 other staff, and when I talk to them, I said I want the positives. As much as like we're very used to like how we've been coached with a lot of my own coaches, it's always been that dictatorship kind of coming down hard, lots of screaming and yelling. Where with my staff, I want them to go talk to the player, like, hey, what's going on? Let's slow this down. Like, how can we fix this? And so it's not like what you did wrong. It's looking at, okay, here's what you did, and here's what I need you to do. So then they're not being told, you can't do this right. You'll never be good at this. It's creating the positive conversations to kind of move in that direction. Yeah, yes, there's definitely room, to like be critical and like, this was not done correctly. Here's what I need you to do instead. So it's kind of having like the full range of feedback. So the growth mindset piece on the macro scale for me is how I speak to my coaches first off.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this was wrong. No, like here's what happened. Here's what we need to do though. And so it's showing like there's something more going on versus being completely negative, because that doesn't help your culture. So that's the macro scale. It's all the coaches and how they speak to positions. And then that funnels down a micro scale, with the players and how they treat each other. One thing that I found quite useful in that was just, anytime you hear it, it's just kind of nipping it right then and there, and just even modeling it continuously. Like when we have our team breakdowns, it's, yeah, here's what we're working on right now. Here's looks really good. Here's, where we got to have more focus. So that's what I found so far, as a continual message for growth mindset has worked.
And you say 17 coaches, which blows my mind. It's difficult with even 3 or 4 in a soccer context. I mean, that's just a management, just a management logistics effort load in itself. So how do you manage them coaches? How do you educate them? What's the frequency of that?
So right now with the way the staff works, I've got myself, and I've got coordinator positions. So I've got defense, offense, and special teams.
Yeah.
And underneath of them, there's positional coaches. So I have 1 or 2 coaches for each position. So as far as, bringing the message to them, like we would meet every day in our coaches room before practice and kind of go over what the message is going to be for the day. So, whether it's, we want to like, hey, we got to work hard on this aspect of the game. Hey, let's work on being positive on this part, whatever it might be. The time put into it, it would have been a daily effort as far as, growth mindset ideas. When we had opportunities to dive more into it with, some different player meetings, we would always take the opportunities. So weekly, there was probably 1 to 2 smaller meetings with myself, another coach, and a player to kind of work on that piece of culture. And then daily, we would have our focus of the day as far as practice is concerned, outside of what the tactical measures were. We looked at ways to kind of work on that mental piece.
Okay, and then when you're training, when you're actually taking the field, and I know football is very tactical in terms of how you want specific players. So are you ensuring that you're giving players equal kind of spotlight and equal nurturing during the training environment?
The best effort possible. As you build, when you're coaching and build relationships, you've had players for several years. How you might speak to, your a first-year player versus a fifth-year player will vary a little bit. It might be a little bit more, kind of fun in some aspects, but also, finding ways to kind of bridge the gap as well. I have a young coaching staff. We're not, some of the guys are, 3 or 4 years removed from playing. So as far as, how we treat each other, that's a big part, from staff to player. And, that's definitely part of it. As far as the nurturing and or taking care of guys and making sure it's there, it's a daily it's everyone does it. When someone's down, they pick them up. If we've got more than one thing going on as far as any kind of player disciplinary action or lack of efforts, whatnot, we will ask our captains as well to be part of it. So we're not just completely come from top down. So sometimes, if you have one of your players or come up and support you, it makes a bit more of a difference sometimes than a coach coming down on you.
Now, going towards the physical corner of the model, if you like,
yeah.
How is it periodized your program? In terms of when you're hitting the field and when you're hitting the gym.
Okay, well, for junior, it's quite different. I find so if we're comparing, your single event sports or longer seasons, as periodization goes, that we've got a 8-month off season. So it does allow it's a very long off season. The football is pretty tough on the body as a whole. So we've got time for, as far as growth in training, they've got time for 2 full periodized programs before they would hit the field.
Yeah.
So that would be for your growth phase, power, strength, the whole works. As far as being in season, we try to get them to do 2 to 3 maintenance lifts. So if they can get into the gym for 45 minutes and do 2 to 3 major exercises and a little bit of, stabilization work, we're usually really happy. The realism with junior, we're not attached to an institution. So for example, DIU, basketball, they have to go to school. There's training times involved. With the CJFL, we are a junior sport, so similar to junior hockey, where our affiliation is with that league and also the CFL for us. So the players don't have to go to school. They can, do what they need to do. Lots of them work, but as far as getting them to go to the gym, our off season's great because that's where the player's made for football. The season's very, very short, very quick. So the work that they put in now is what, transcends on the field. So for us, getting the two full periodized programs and then having maintenance during season, I'm the happiest guy in the world.
So let's talk about your season briefly last season. So knocked out in the semis by another island team. Was it what you expected in terms of where you got to when you were coming into the season at the get-go?
Coming into the season, there was a lot of fires to put out, a lot of change to be made. So as far as expectations for playing wise, we underperformed as far as I think our schedule went. We were better than a 5-5 team. But where there's just some bounces that didn't go our way, some minor injuries that, obviously you can't blame it on it, but I would say we performed as a team fairly well. We learned a lot of new things. At any given moment, that team could have, I think, gone toe-to-toe with the best, but we weren't quite as consistent as we needed to be going down the stretch. So, I would say we did well. I'm very proud of every one of them and all the effort put into it. Did we underperform? A little bit, but did we build something, a stepping stone for the next year coming up? Absolutely.
And what is the tangible connections? I know you're very, very prevalent in the community, especially with Barsby, which is just, I know we did a podcast last year about it, and I was amazed the culture is built there and the performances on the field. from a program that, has a lot of barriers. So what's the tangible connections now that you're in place? What's different or what's enhanced?
For Barsby?
Just for the pathway as a whole in this region for football.
For football. Well, it definitely doesn't hurt being involved with like a school like Barsby. I get the chance to kind of obviously see, up and coming talent island wide. Also, like, so the Victoria program, one, the coach down there, he works at one of the high schools as well. And he does training for them. So he does something similar. But as far as like locally, when we're looking at different players, different teams, what does it do to the landscape of it? It definitely changes it, where I get to be there and involved and see what happens, being very present in the community, as well as, being at a school. I get the opportunity to meet not only the players, but the parents too, and kind of understand more of their character and where they come from. Getting to know other coaches in the high school ranks definitely plays a part in knowing, what the players will bring to the table as far as football IQ and even the training that they undergo. So you get to know different coaches and their styles, and you know what the player comes with, which definitely helps as far as our selection process.
Yeah, what I imagine that you get a good insight into, which I'm always trying to get better at, is recognizing the character of a player. It's so hard to do at a camp or a one-off training session or a game where you're seeing these kids grow, and that grit and determination, which you could argue is nature or nurtured, but you're seeing it firsthand. And
Yeah.
you ever check in with those kids and say, keep going because you got the character type of thing?
Oh, absolutely. That's definitely something I'm really, really fortunate. I'll see, I've had a couple of young men in grade 8 and grade 9
Mm-hmm.
who I've had a chance to watch over the past 4 years start to really flourish. And then being involved in their training, I know what they're capable of, and like I know what their physicality is. And you let them know, like, hey, you know what, you keep going. I definitely want to be able to bring you on the field with me. So I've definitely got a handful that are coming up through the ranks who I'm extremely excited about. Even the ones that graduated this year, having a chance to see them work and grow, and absolutely, definitely, like, I want them to come and compete, and that's something to provide an opportunity for these young men. Like, that's the best part of the job.
Yeah, that's a good caveat to what I kind of want to wrap up on. You and I have worked together in programs, worked alongside each other, it was great learning for me in the Ignite program, and we try to send a holistic message to kids. You can't just be in the gym, you can't just be on the track, especially as a young person. You got to really be approaching a sport and many sports as the whole evolution of yourself as a human. So
Yeah.
I know you've built something at Barsby and you're doing things like that. Maybe give us your take on kind of current, how sports are in line with education in the elementary and secondary school system now, and what's kind of new these days.
Well, what I'm noticing as far as like the athletes and opportunities in school and kids, like how it's all working, the elementary system, that locally, they're doing a really great job with, getting volunteer coaches and people that want to be there. They're not always volunteer parents. There are a lot of students from BIU come down to any elementary school and volunteer with volleyball and basketball. So seeing some quality coaching coming through there, which has been fantastic. And I think that's going to play a really big part as far as, their growth into high school and hopefully beyond it. In BC high school sport, there's a lot of great things going on as far as, coaching and opportunities for players. Seeing, how the basketball program, like especially in BC, how strong it's become. Football BC, seeing that even soccer kind of started to get some growth. It's been really awesome. So, as far as like those are concerned, like we're getting quality coaching, which has been great. We're not getting the same, issues that we hear about. One of the struggles I'm noticing though in high school sports is competing with club sport, which club provides consistent quality coaching and different opportunities as well. So we're not very good at sharing athletes. I've noticed that as far as between high school and the club, because club, they're paying to be there, and high school they're part of their local team. So that's something I've definitely noticed has been a trend volleyball is really, heavy for that. I noticed as well. But as far as the continual growth and change and evolution of sport, we're seeing a different kind of athlete come through. I'm noticing they're a bit more self-aware in what their abilities are. Is that them hindering themselves? I'm not quite sure yet, but they come in thinking they're good at one thing and they try as much as they can in some aspects, but it's definitely evolving quite differently. Where 5-6 years ago we were still getting the fairly tough, gritty athlete. I noticed through different sports between hockey and football, even soccer, basketball, you're getting a tougher, more mentally strong one. But now they're extremely athletic, but a bit more kind of sensitive, I would say, and that's, I guess, how things are evolving. That's probably also going hand in hand with, a home life, perhaps the environment, nature versus nurture. But definitely seeing the athletes, become much more like athletic as far as movements and strength and power. But as far as like personality wise, a bit more sensitive, which isn't necessarily a bad thing.
No, I agree. And I think that our coaching has to evolve with that as well. For instance,
Yeah.
I'm a believer in now, I'm trying to rack my brains on how to tailor to the new generation of athlete. And for instance, and this is just my opinion, but I don't think children are watching a full-length game as much as they used to, whatever sport it may be. And I'm generalizing. So in that aspect, maybe they're not doing as much observational learning. So maybe our coaching's got to evolve to be a bit more functional and a bit more isolated and breaking down, as well as giving them the game option.
I would agree with you. I think it's even like the idea of like them watching a full game is attention span. If they're not involved in it, do they actually even want to see it?
Yeah.
And that's a big part of it too. Like I don't we're all super technology dependent right now with the pandemic going on, but when I've had a major struggle with even my junior level players to watch film and to see what they need to do in the growth. So it's not just high school, it's not just university. Like I don't know what's going on in the professional ranks, but with a lot of my guys, I'm lucky to get 20-30% in a given week to really focus on film, and then they wonder why they're not playing.
Yeah. John Herdman does a lot of cool things with the national team, and they have a performance room after the trainings and games, especially in camp, where all the players, coaches don't go in, players go in, and they play with all the technology and video analysis. And these are guys, obviously guys and females at a very high level, but it's interesting for them to delve into that and really be critical of each other's game and see it and play with the tools in terms of video analysis as well. I wanted to mention as well what you said about organizations fighting over players. I can totally understand that. And what I've been thinking about, one thing is school sports. And they always seem to, school sports and club organizations and private organizations sometimes can have a little bit of conflict. What I've been thinking about lately is that I don't think I've ever met a soccer player, who's gone, man, I hate school games. I hate school soccer. So you scratch your head and think, okay, well, what is it that they're not giving? And what I think it is playing with your friends.
Yeah.
That's what you could argue. School soccer maybe doesn't have the most qualified people and you're playing with different ages. However, it seems like the environment is pretty good because they're and they're getting out of school, obviously. So that might be making them happy. But I know it would be me. But I think we should take from that. So I think clubs and organizations and school coaches probably need to come together and share some commonalities and also nitpick off each other that they can put into their own program. Because I think coming from a soccer perspective, we've got to work on the environment to increase participation levels. And it sounds like football is trying to do that as well.
Oh, absolutely. Like we've been pretty good like this last 2 years, I would say, on like communicating on who's doing what and how to take care of each other. We've got high hopes to add some more programs even on the island. The one thing that football has, well, benefit but also detriment, is like there's in Nanaimo, for example, there's 2 senior high school programs. There's one in Parksville, and there's not a lot going on. So our competition for athletes we're not competing. Let's say, like, there's some community football. High school football is the strongest for us, but we're not necessarily fighting to get them to play one or the other. What we're fighting with is other school sports to keep, because like during how the seasons cross over.
Right. Yeah.
But I 100% agree with you though, as far as like when there's more organizations in one age category to sit there and share and like, grow the sport. I think that people lose sight of growing the sport instead of just, going out there for a win. Obviously it's competitive and we want to, put the best team out there. But if we're not out to grow the sport, then what are we really doing?
Yeah. And I know John Barsby and the program there, I know you guys have, you've had success with some female programs. What is the landscape looking like and the pathway looking like for young females out there who are wanting to play?
To play sport?
Play football.
Or football. Oh, we've got a couple at Barsby actually.
Yeah.
And there's more and more opportunity. I would love to see the senior sports kind of grow on the island. I know with my recruiting trips I go around the country with, when I stop in the prairie provinces, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, they've got female leagues and it's extremely competitive. It's great football, good coaching, so is as far as like, growth of the game, like it's definitely happening in the female realm, which is fantastic to see. In high school here, we always get a couple of players that try it out, and the more that can do it and be part of it, this to help the sport grow. So it's definitely becoming more and more common.
So you got as far as playing at a very high level, CFL and WHL. Am I right in saying that, with hockey and football?
Yeah.
How does someone do that? Because both very difficult sports. You must look back on that and look very fondly on that. What would you say to kids out there who are still kind of trying to decide what sport they want to do, or maybe they haven't done any sport? Maybe they've just been very individualized and kind of just maybe skateboarding or whatnot. What would you have messages to those kids who maybe haven't found their way yet?
Just to go try it all. I had never played football until I turned 19 and then went, to sign professionally in 4 years after. Go try more things. Like, I grew up in a really small town, so hockey was the sport to play. We had other high school sports, but, we were from a tiny town and competition was, 2 hours away. So as far as growing up in a larger center, do it all, try things out, see what your calling is. Obviously being around your friends helps to start and become more confident, but the more sports you try, the more well-rounded you become, like the more opportunities open up for you.
Okay, cool. Well, bringing this to an end now, what are your kind of goals over the next short to mid to long-term goals over the next little while here?
Well, I got high hopes that restrictions lift so we can practice soon. But as far as sport is concerned here, like we're kind of at a standstill, like everyone else, waiting to hear if it's going to be a season or not. So right now, short-term goal is to keep players engaged and continue forward with hopefully some positive messages. A long-term for us, obviously we like to win a championship, but we'll see what pans out with the Provincial Health Organization and World Health Organization for playing. So, short term, keep players engaged and going, and long term, want to win a couple of rings.
Sounds good, Curtis. Always good to chat. Glad we could organize this. I appreciate your patience on getting this going. And have a great weekend, and I hope we touch base soon.
Yeah, thanks, Kev. I really appreciate your time, man. This is awesome. Really appreciate you do.
All right, thanks, Curtis. Have a good day, buddy.
Thanks, Kev. You too, buddy. Take care.